Hello there, I'm Yassine Rikti and you're watching World News live from Algiers. To the headlines. Tensions between the United States and Iran continue despite signs of de-escalation. US strikes targeted various Iranian sites, while Tehran said it had hit key US positions in the Gulf. Trump said a deal with Iran remains possible. In the latest developments in the Middle East, the US has imposed a maritime blockade on Iran, while maritime authorities confirmed that ships and oil tankers were hit by projectiles and missiles in the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian military maintained its positions on the strait. Renewed international support for the Sahara people's right to self-determination. International human rights groups call for the release of prisoner Naama Asfari as Morocco intensifies violation against Sahrawi detainees. Welcome to the details of our program. First, in our news, at least 3 Iranians were killed in a US strike targeting Hajiabad district in Hormozgan province, southern Iran. Iran's Mehr news agency reported on Tuesday that the victims, all from the same family, were killed after the strike hit the main environmental ranger station in the village of Said Gauder in Hajiabad County. The United States has resumed its naval blockade of Iran as tensions over the Strait of Hormuz continue to rise. U.S. Central Command says more than 20 Navy warships and hundreds of military aircraft are deployed across the Middle East. This came as U.S. Army launched a new wave of strikes against Iran overnight. According to a statement by the U.S. Central Command posted on X, the strikes aim to inflict heavy losses on Iranian forces and degrade their ability to attack civilians and commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
During the 5-hour mission, U.S. forces successfully struck military targets across Iran, including Bushehr, Shah Bahar, Jask, Konarak, Abu Musa, and Bandar Abbas, to further degrade Iran's ability to attack commercial shipping. CENTCOM forces employed precision munitions against Iranian coastal defense systems, missile and drone sites, and maritime capabilities. More than 50,000 U.S. service members are currently deployed across the Middle East. American forces remain vigilant, lethal, and ready.
Iranian media reported that U.S. projectiles exploded near a power station on Kish Island in southern Iran. According to Tasnim news agency, the blasts may force several power generation units offline. The agency added that Tuesday's U.S. strikes on Kish Island's port also injured several visitors. An Iranian official said several sites in the city of Bushehr came under attack, blaming the United States and Israel. Bushehr Deputy Governor Ehsan Jahanyan told IRNA on Tuesday that 4 locations in the city were struck. The agency also reported explosions in the Konarak area of Sistan and Baluchistan province, alongside 6 blasts heard in the cities of Bushehr and Shogadak. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said Tuesday it launched missile and drone attacks on Bahrain after the kingdom urged residents to take shelter following the activation of air raid sirens. Iranian state television citing IRGC said the strikes targeted military logistics warehouses, a satellite communications center, and a residential building used by U.S. forces in Bahrain. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps IRGC claimed its forces destroyed a Patriot radar, an air traffic control radar belonging to the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet, and the Sea-Ram early warning radar system. In a statement on Tuesday, the IRGC said its naval and aerospace forces carried out a missile and drone attack on the U.S. 5th Fleet in Bahrain, claiming the strike set fuel tanks ablaze. The damaged the radar systems and completely destroyed a command and control center for unmanned boats. The IRGC vowed to continue its retaliation.
The second phase of the second wave of Operation Nasr II in response to the crimes of the U.S. military, the fighters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, and aerospace force carried out a missile and drone attack on the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, resulting in the ignition of the fleet's fuel storage tanks and the targeting and destruction of a Patriot radar, the fleet's air control radar, as well as a sea-ram early warning radar system.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Tuesday that it had targeted a U.S. airbase in Jordan with Iranian ballistic missiles. In a statement carried by Fars news agency, the IRGC urged Jordanians to demand the removal of U.S. military bases from their country, saying Iran holds no hostility toward Jordan and expressing support for what it described as the Palestinian cause. U.S. President Donald Trump has formally notified Congress that he resumed military operations against Iran on July 7th. In a letter dated July 10th and seen by Reuters, Trump said he ordered the operation to protect Americans' U.S. national security and foreign policy interest. The letter also outlined the administration's diplomatic efforts and accused Iran of violating a memorandum of understanding by attacking commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, prompting the renewed strikes. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that reaching an agreement with Tehran to end the war remains possible despite the latest U.S. strikes on Iran and the renewed blockade of Iranian ports. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said he believes a deal with Iran is still achievable, adding that an agreement had been reached 2 days earlier and that negotiations should continue. The UAE said Tuesday that one person was killed and others injured in a missile attack it blamed on Iran, targeting the oil tankers Mambasa and Al-Bahia in the southern corridor of the Strait of Hormuz. Media reports citing that the UAE Ministry of Defense said the victim was an Indian crew member aboard and a Mambasa tanker. 8 others were injured, including 4 seriously. 6 were Indian nationals and 2 were Ukrainian. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it struck 2 large oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing them out of service for allegedly ignoring maritime security warnings. The IRGC said the vessels followed misleading U.S. instructions, disabled navigation systems, and ignored repeated warnings from the Strait's monitoring center. Iran's army spokesperson said Iranian forces will not back down over the Strait of Hormuz, stressing that the strait will not be reopened through war. He said Tuesday that the only way to reopen the strait is by respecting the rights of the Iranian people, adding that it would not be opened through what he described as U.S. aggression.
Hours ago, in what it said was not one of its recurring incidents, the U.S. military attempted to force a number of vessels to pass through an unlawful route by directing 2 giant oil tankers to do so. The 2 vessels, deceived by the United States, switched off their navigation systems, ignoring repeated warnings issued by the Maritime Security Monitoring Center in the Strait of Hormuz. This endangered navigation through the waterway. They also chose to sail through a mine-infested route, which resulted in the vessels being damaged and put out of service.
Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi said complex discussions are on the way to establish a long-term arrangement guaranteeing freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. He said Tuesday that Oman is working with Iran and the international community to reach an agreement, adding that the greatest threats to Gulf security come from external actions and decisions, particularly those of the Israel occupation. US President Donald Trump said the Strait of Hormuz is open to shipping except for vessels linked to Iran, and announced a full blockade on ships traveling to or from Iranian ports or carrying Iranian goods. In a post on Truth Social, Trump credited the move to what he described as the strength of the US military.
This success in enforcing the blockade is unprecedented, thanks to the overwhelming power of the U.S. military. Special thanks to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Don Kane, and Commander of U.S. Central Command Admiral Brad Cooper. Thanks to them and to every member of the world's most powerful military, the Strait of Hormuz is now open to all ships except those of Iran. This is because of Iran's lying, violent, and hateful leadership, which is leading the country towards total destruction. Accordingly, we will impose a complete blockade, but only on vessels traveling to or from Iranian ports or carrying any Iranian cargo.
Trump added that in his post that he decided to replace the 20% payment fees with trade and investment deals with Gulf countries, saying these investments would create millions of jobs in the United States. Let's take a listen.
I have decided to replace the 20% United States reimbursement fee with trade and investment deals that the various Gulf states will be making into the United States. Those investments will be massive, but at the same time, extraordinarily good for them and their future.
China on Tuesday urged the United States and Iran to restore safe shipping through the Strait of Hormuz amid renewed tensions over control of the waterway. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said reopening normal and secure transit through the strait as soon as possible is a shared international goal, adding that Beijing will continue efforts to ease tensions.
China is deeply concerned over resumed military conflict in the Gulf region. China calls on relevant parties to heed the strong call for peace and stability from the region and beyond. Remain calm and exercise restraint, safeguard the hard-won ceasefire, avoid the return of war, and more importantly, prevent the fighting from spreading and hurting more innocent people. Respect for the lawful rights and interests of the coastal countries of the Strait of Hormuz and an early resumption of normal and safe passage at the strait is what the international community wants to see. Relevant parties need to work in the same direction and seek a proper settlement. I have decided to replace the 20% United States reimbursement.
Once again, the Strait of Hormuz has emerged as one of the world's most volatile flashpoints. The latest escalation follows the US announcement of naval blockade on Iranian ports. Nabil Khazini has the full story.
Once again, the Strait of Hormuz has emerged as one of the world's most volatile flashpoints. A narrow waterway that carries a significant share of global oil exports is once again at the center of rising military tensions, fueling concerns over energy security, international trade, and the possibility of a broader regional conflict. The latest escalation follows the United States announcement that it has reimposed the naval blockade on Iranian ports, describing the move as a response to renewed Iranian attacks on commercial vessels operating near the Strait of Hormuz. Military exchanges between Washington and Tehran continue to intensify, with both sides expanding operations across the Gulf, raising the risks for commercial shipping and increasing uncertainty throughout the region. The impact has been felt almost immediately. Commercial shipping through the strait has slowed as some operators delay or reroute voyages amid growing security concerns. Oil markets have also reacted, with Middle Eastern crude prices moving higher as traders assess the possibility of prolonged disruptions to one of the world's most critical energy corridors. At the same time, US President Donald Trump has abandoned a proposal to impose a 20% transit fee on vessels using the Strait of Hormuz, opting instead to pursue investment agreement with Gulf partners while maintaining military and economic pressure on Iran. For now, the strait remains open to navigate, but under extraordinary military tension, with attacks continuing, naval deployments expanding, and global markets closely watching every development. The Strait of Hormuz has once again become a focal point of global instability, where any further escalation could have far-reaching consequences for energy supplies, international shipping, and the world economy.
In another development, 12 Palestinians were killed, including 8 in northern Gaza and 4 in the south, one of them from previous injuries in Zionist airstrikes since Tuesday morning. Medical sources said 7 police officers and a woman were killed in an airstrike on the Al Khan market in Al Fallujah, west of Jabalia refugee camp. A child was also killed by Israeli occupation fire in the Mawasi area of Rafah. The sources added that 1 Palestinian was killed and others injured in a strike near Sheikh Ajlin Mosque, southwest of Gaza City. 2 others were killed, including a man who died from wounds sustained in an earlier airstrike on Al-Qadisiyah camp near Khan Yunis, and an aid truck driver who was reportedly shot dead in Rafah's Mawasi area. Civil society groups and political figures in Trinidad and Tobago reaffirmed their support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence under the UN Charter and international resolutions. During a meeting with Sahrawi Ambassador Mohammed Zrouk, they called for continued support for the Sahrawi cause, especially as Trinidad and Tobago is set to join the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member, offering new opportunities to promote the issue internationally. Sahrawi civilian prisoners from the Gdeim Izik group in Morocco prisons began a hunger strike in support of their fellow prisoner Naama Asfari, who has been on an open hunger strike for 36 consecutive days. The Association for the Protection of Sahrawi Prisoners in Moroccan prisons said Tuesday that the strike sends a clear message against what it described as retaliatory policies and mistreatment by Moroccan authorities. It added that the prisoners' resilience behind bars reflects the broader struggle of the Sahrawi people. On behalf of Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria's Council of the Nation President Azzouz Nasri arrived in Doha on Tuesday to offer condolences to Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani following the death of his father, former Emir Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. A statement from Algeria's Council of the Nation said Nasri was accompanied by senior officials, including Interior Minister Said Sayoud and Major General Mohammed Salah bin Bisha, Secretary General of the Ministry of National Defense. The Algerian delegation was received at Doha Airport by Algeria's ambassador to Qatar, Salah Hatiya, and embassy officials. On behalf of Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Prime Minister Sifi Riyab signed the condolence register at the Qatari embassy in Algeria on Tuesday following the death of former Emir Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. In his message, Riyab said the loss of a leader of Sheikh Hamad's stature was a profound one, praising his dedication to serving Qatar and its people through the high responsibilities he carried out with wisdom and competence.
It's with deep sorrow, profound grief, and acceptance of Allah's will that we learn the death of the Emir, His Highness Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani. In this painful circumstance that has afflicted the esteemed Al Thani family and the brotherly Qatari people, we extend to you our sincerest condolences and deepest sympathies, praying to Allah Almighty to receive him in His vast paradise and to grant you, the state of Qatar and its brotherly people, patience and forbearance. The loss of Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani compels us to say a word of truth about the late deceased, who devoted his life to serving Qatar and its brotherly people through the high responsibilities he assumed with competence and wisdom.
Algeria's Foreign Ministry Secretary General Lounas Magraman highlighted the country's progress toward achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals on the 2030 agenda. During the high-level political forum on sustainable development, Magraman highlighted Algeria's achievements under President Abdelmajid Tebboune, including economic diversification, digital transformation, youth and women's inclusion, energy transition, and water security.
واصلت الجزائر إصلاحاتها الهيكلية.
Algeria has continued its structural reforms and preserved its social model under the wise leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, by adopting transformative measures based on 5 pillars. First, strengthening economic diversification and supporting a growth dynamic approaching 4% with an outstanding performance outside the hydrocarbon sector. Second, digitalization and institutional modernization through strengthening e-governance and developing digital services. Third, integrating youth and women at the core of economic activity by supporting the knowledge economy and targeting the creation of 13,000 innovative enterprises. Fourth, accelerating the energy transition under a program to produce 15,000 megawatts of renewable energy by 2035 and develop green hydrogen. Fifth, strengthening water security. Algeria has increased its seawater desalination capacity to cover more than 40% of drinking water needs.
Algeria's Foreign Ministry Secretary General Lounes Magraman stressed the importance of constructive international partnerships and addressing the root causes of crises. Speaking at the high-level political forum on sustainable development, he also called for fair development opportunities and faster reform of the international financial system to ensure adequate and sustainable funding for developing countries.
National effort, no matter how ambitious it is, remains dependent on a more equitable international environment. For this reason, Algeria calls for addressing the root causes of the crisis, ensuring fair development opportunities, and accelerating reform of the international financial system to reduce the burden of debt and provide appropriate, sustainable financing for developing countries. We must also work together to close the digital divide and establish a global AI framework that is responsible and fair. Algeria continues to play an active role in this direction through leading regional activities such as the African Startup Conference, which has consistently organized to become a reference African platform for innovation, entrepreneurship, cooperation, and exchange of expertise.
A high-level Algerian technical delegation visited Chad's capital, N'Djamena, from July 12th to 16th to strengthen bilateral cooperation in vocational training and establish mechanisms to implement the cooperation agreement between the two countries. Officials from Algeria's Ministry of Vocational Training and Education said the visit aims to implement the agreement signed in Algiers on April 22nd, 2026, and help both countries develop a roadmap for cooperation in the field.
The practical implementation of everything that has been planned to advance mutual cooperation between the two sectors and the vocational training and education sector in Chad involves several areas we will work on. Among the most important are, first, the general strategy to support our Chadian brothers in the training of trainers in general. Second, the training environment for formal training and leadership training for trainees at level 5. And third, which is also very important, digitization and the strategy related to digitization in the vocational training and education sector.
Et nous avons travaillé aussi avec Madame la ministre de la Formation professionnelle.
We have worked with Madam the Minister of Vocational Training and Education, who will certainly contribute to bringing to life everything we have prepared. We currently have a technical team accompanying us to work on the various issues. As His Excellency the Ambassador of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria explained a short while ago, the goals and reasons for our brother's visit, especially our sister who is with us today, will be translated into concrete steps. The third reason that brings us together this morning is the implementation side of all that has been said.
The African Union Commission expressed its willingness to begin dialogue with Mali's government to restore peace and stability in the country. After meeting Mali's transitional military leader, General Assimi Goïta, AU Commission chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf said the process, led primarily by Mali's authorities and people, would likely have a political path through elections, adding that Africa wants Mali to restore constitutional order and maintain strong relations with its neighbors.
Fellow Africans, Excellencies, distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen. Africa's health is Africa's wealth. From the 21st to 22nd July 2026, the African Union Commission will convene the first extraordinary African Union Summit on health in Accra, Ghana, bringing together our heads of state and government to shape a renewed continental health agenda.
The World Health Organization (WHO) said Tuesday that deaths from the Ebola outbreak in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo have surpassed 700 across 5 provinces, making it the third largest Ebola outbreak in history. WHO Emergencies Chief Chikwe Ehkwazo warned that the Bundibugyo virus outbreak is spreading rapidly, with more than 80 confirmed cases recorded within 24 hours in recent days. He added that the actual number of infections is likely twice the reported figures. This is the end of our news bulletin. If you have missed any part of it, you can always check our social media platforms as well as our website. Thank you for your kind attention.